Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome our video audience as well as our in-person audience. We're very lucky to, my name's Eric Rothenbuehler. I'm the Dean of the School of Communications. We're very lucky today to have two speakers from the leadership of Gateway Studios and Production Services, a new business here in town, and we're happy to say new friends of the school. And so Gateway Studios and Production Services is building a world-class live touring rehearsal complex and production services company here in St. Louis. Important to that is not only building a facility and equipping a facility, but building a team. And so they're putting together a world-class team of executives, engineers, and touring professionals. And they are very interested in meeting our students and alumni as they help to build out their new organization. Joining us today is David Haskell, sitting over here on my left, President of Business Development at Gateway Studios. He brings 40 years of experience in the industry. He's served as a tour manager, production manager, front of house engineer, and producer for some of the biggest names in the industry. Prior to Gateway, David was president of Morris Light and Sound in Nashville, Tennessee, a company big enough that even I know their name, as well as the Tracking Room, another studio everyone knows about, Nashville's largest recording studio. David also previously served as general manager of the Alabama Theater in Myrtle Beach, managing over 300 live performances a year. He serves, also manages stages for the CMA Music Festival, CMA Music Awards, and Red Carpet. Among the touring and producing credits, David counts Alabama, Kenny Chesney, Sugarland, Keb Mo, Gretchen Wilson, Vince Gill, and Jim Nabors. How many of you know Jim Nabors?
Gomer Pyle? Andy Griffith? Anybody? Anybody? No? Okay.
I don't know either. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Trey Kerr is CEO of Gateway Studios, here to my immediate left, an Emmy Award-winning director and producer with more than 20 years of industry experience, serving as video director, video engineer, tour manager, stage manager, backline technician for some of the biggest names in the industry. Trey founded 201 Productions as an industry leader for 4K video production, broadcasts, and webcasts for some of the largest events in the music industry. Touring and producing credits include Phish, Maroon 5, Florida Georgia Line, Drake, Romeo Santos, Thomas Rhett, Vampire Weekend, Green Sky Bluegrass, Bonnaroo Festival, and many others. So please welcome our new friends, David and Trey.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, now that we're off and running. Thanks for the introductions. I guess that saves us 5 minutes there of us telling. Very nice job, and thank you for doing that. I think probably the best way to do this is to end up with quite a bit of Q&A today. I think is probably the best way to get the most out of this. We'll run through a little bit and explain to you what we're building here in St. Louis and how we're going, what the timeline is, and also discuss the internship program. We're already very actively involved with the university here and starting the internship program with you guys. So that'll be almost, I think, probably as early as this next semester in the fall, we'll actually be able to hopefully place some of you in our facilities working, and hopefully possibly after you graduate employing you, because I'm a very big fan of the university. I know Trey is as well, bringing this along. I had a lot in my Nashville years. I successfully did this with Belmont University for several years, and it worked out very, very well. I'm happy to say we probably got 5 or 6 people working for us now that came out of that program that are now running departments and running tours, which is very, very exciting. First of all, I guess I'll run through what Gateway is, as he and briefly he told you. It was born out of the pandemic. This was all of us. We have four members. If we can run to the next slide, please, I'll kind of show you. There's 4 of us as things hit. Well, production. This is kind of what we are. We've already explained what we're doing here. Next slide as well. Here we go. So the 4 of us. This kind of was Trey's idea, is how this all parted out of, and obviously we were all working in 2019 very, very successfully. Thank goodness. And when the pandemic hit, it was literally like pulling the plug out of the wall. So everybody went from 1,000 miles an hour in 2019 of touring as hard as we can to absolutely nothing. So as you do, as road people do and professional people do, first thing you do is you start calling your friends and figuring out, what are we going to do? How are we going to pivot? None of us, want to pivot into a different career. So through Trey's leadership here, we kind of all got together, and I'll let Trey tell you a little bit about how the process came together and how the team came together, and then I'll take over and tell you what we're doing after that.
Want me to jump there now?
Absolutely.
All right,
Go for it.
Like David said, the pandemic obviously crushed our industry. We were all put on pause for a very long time. So my company, 201 Productions, was a very successful video company, broadcast company, specializing in live event production and touring video and those types of things. So essentially, while sitting on the couch, as any roadie would tell you, that you get a little squirmish and you get tired of waiting. So the idea kind of came about that one of the things we wanted to focus on and look at was as a rehearsal facility, which started as one small room, and now we're in the situation where we're building a 32-acre campus out in Chesterfield, which is west of here, but 32-acre campus, 300,000 square foot facility with 3 state-of-the-art rehearsal facilities on there, which we'll get into a little bit later. But with that, Jesse Sandler, who you see over here, Jesse is Father's like Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jesse's been in the industry since he was 5. He ran around stage with John Mellencamp and those types of things. But Jesse's been a production manager, a tour manager, a stage manager, a tour accountant, all of those things from everybody from Prince, Michael Jackson, Bon Jovi, some of the biggest names in the industry. Jesse is the production manager out on Fish, who I still currently work for. But I got with Jesse and I said, hey, if we're doing this, if we're going to build a world-class facility, where do we need to start? And we brought Jesse on board, and Jesse and I kind of designed that side of the thing. And then in terms of, well, how do you support a world-class facility that is of this nature? And you have to have the production services side of things to do that as well. And my company was essentially a one-sided or a one-headed monster where we only did video. So I reached out to Andy Gerber. Andy comes from the ScreenWorks world, which is one of the largest LED vendors in the industry. So, again, sitting around not doing anything, Andy, what are you doing? You want to come on over? So in that time, as you can see, we started building a team up. And we reached out to David, and David had just been involved in the process of selling Morris Lights and Sound, and did not want to go with that venture and was a free agent. So we picked up David, which in turn brought in the lighting and audio element of the company as well. So basically where we're at with that is we have a leadership team with over 120 years experience. We've worked with everyone in the industry. And one thing that just to take a right-hand turn here, our industry is very, very small. You are your own individual person and everybody knows who everybody is. You are merited on your work ethic and how hard you work and the time you put in and those types of things. So with that, we have a world-class leadership team that is unparalleled to anybody else out there. And essentially, we've designed a company here where our rehearsal facility side of things feeds the production company, and the production company feeds the rehearsal side. So what I like to refer to it as is a water wheel effect kind of deal. So anything else I'm missing here that you wanted me to touch on?
That's good we'll continue to run through it. And one thing that, as Trey said, it's a very small business, and you're your own and that's so true. And one thing that I've used in a lot of the years, and a piece of advice that I can give you, obviously always strive to be the best at what you do in whatever discipline or whatever field you go into. But when you get out on the road and start getting placed on these tours, it's 90% of how you hang in the clubhouse and 10% of how you perform on the field. Always remember that. It's nice to be nice. People always remember that you can be the best person and you can be the best engineer in the world, but if people don't like you or they don't hang well, you'll be the best engineer in the world all by yourself, sitting at home. Something to keep in mind there. So if we go to the next slide, oh, we're already there. This is just, since we've built this, we built this company up literally from the rack screw. 8 months ago, we had 2 very large warehouses that were completely empty. I mean, empty, with the exception of some of the 201 video equipment that Trey had that we brought in. So building that in 6 months was a Herculean task. I've done it twice before, and then I said the last time I did it, I'll never do it again, but we've done it and we've built it up in a very, very quick fashion. This is just, we've basically been outside of the 201. Gateway's been in business for 6 months now, and these are just some of the small things we've done in the last 6 months here. So we're doing everything from touring to corporate to festivals to live streaming to television work. I mean, it's all over the place, and it's only getting crazier. Biggest thing about it getting crazier is the demand for the gear, and we'll get into the gear, and we can talk tech as much as you want to later on the audio side. But the biggest thing is people and personnel right now. With the pandemic happening, we lost almost 35% of our people who left the industry and are not coming back. So that really excites me to see everybody here, everybody out there that's watching in the streaming thing. Very, very promising. It does my heart good, as they say, to see people excited about wanting to get into this business. And it's a hell of a business to be into as well. And we'll get into a lot of the questions there. We also have a company that's part of our, it's not a company, it's a division of our company called HiFi, which is a streaming company that was already in. Trey started in with that a year or 2 ago, knowing that when the pandemic hit, as much streaming it was going on, Trey knowing the high-end side of what broadcast looks like and how good it can look. You can spend all the money in the world of making everything 4K HDR, but if you compress it and scream it down something, it just looks horrible. So HiFi is a division of ours, just to let you know, that we can actually stream live in 4K HDR.
And surround sound.
So that's
Free
just
audio.
Another division that we have there. And we go to the next slide as well, please. Let's get to the studios and the campus. Can everybody, am I blocking the whole screen here for everybody that's on that side of the room? This is kind of an overview of what it is. As Trey said, it's a 32-acre campus that we're building 3 very large rehearsal facilities on, and then 2 extended reality, VR, green screen, however you want to call it, where you put the camera in front of the screen and the screen moves and all that wonderful thing that happens, as well as studio support space and an office building and a hotel that's being built on this. So we've broken ground. I don't know if anybody ever goes down 64. If you're from here, they call it 40, I guess. That's still learning, just moving here from Nashville. But it's a very large piece of property that's well underway right now. Just to kind of give you an idea, Studio 80, and this is not a blueprint, this is just kind of an overview. That's the size of an NFL football field. To kind of put it in, and we'll have you a slide here in a minute to kind of put this in perspective. And it is 110 foot tall with a 90 foot, 2 million pound grid in it.
And just to take a little bit of a detour here real quick. So you're probably looking at this going, why the hell is this even necessary or needed? So essentially how our industry works, and it is now, artists no longer make their money from album sales and record sales, and they don't make much from streaming. Artists make the majority of their money from live events, live touring, and that's where they spend their time, that's where they spend their resources, and essentially our industry is completely flipped upside down in the last 15 years on that basis. So what you find is every time an artist goes out, they're putting more and more resources into their live show because you're always trying to raise the bar. You always want the fan that came and saw you the last time to leave the next show that they come and see you with an even better experience, right? So with that, what you've found is the live event, the live touring side of our industry has essentially blown up. It has become a multi-billion-dollar side. It's most of the industry at this point. And essentially what's happened here is artists are spending a great deal of money and time and technicalities on their productions, And with that, the shows are bigger, they're more grandiose. I mean, how many people in here have gone to a concert in the last 6 months? You know, most of you have gone to shows and done that. Or before the pandemic, we're going to shows either way. Big LED walls, big moving lights, big PA systems, all of those things. That all requires, you know, as David likes to say, for the one artist that you went and saw that's standing on stage, there's 100 people behind them backstage that built that show. They didn't just show up and it was like that. So somebody has to do that, and that's part of what we do. But with that, it takes a great deal of time and energy before the tour starts, that they have to build the shows, tech the shows, rehearse the shows, all of those things. So that's become more and more apparent in our industry, and the need has increased tenfold in the last 5 years just based on that. And with that, artists will go in and rent facilities like this and stay in there for 6 weeks at a time, 8 weeks at a time, depending on the artist and the size of the size of the tour, and they will spend their time in there building, teching, and rehearsing, so that show one, when they go out, when they start the tour in St. Louis and you guys go down to Enterprise Center or the Factory or wherever, they want show one to be just as good as the 100th show, the last show of the tour that's in Seattle, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. So with that, the need's grown, so that's why we've built and designed these facilities out in Chesterfield. So go ahead.
There you go. Well put. That's, as Trey said, the model is flipped. It used to be everything was made off of record sales. When I started the business, it was 100% record sales, and you had 2 trusses of lights and enough
He has
PA
gold
where people
cassettes hanging in the office. That's how old he is. So. You guys know what a cassette is, right?
Yeah, excellent. But the need for that, and I'll step through some of that, kind of a day in the life of what it takes on some of these stadium level tours that I've been fortunate enough to be a very large part of and operated and run quite a few of them. So if any questions on that. This gives you an idea. This is actually a render of the inside of Studio 80, if that gives you any perspective of the size of this. That is a 53-foot semi with a tractor on the front of it. So, yeah, it's not a place to woodshed your band. This is actually, as you can see, the grid, 10 by 10, with the etched, all the floors will be etched to match the grid over top. For those of you who understand rigging, that's gold. Literally, when you're trying to figure out your bridles and your points, it's nice to not have to do this all day and get it wrong and run that 100-foot rope up and down 16 times when you can actually mark it out and lay it out on the floor. So that gives you, that's Studio 80. The other boxes are built similar to this, just a little smaller size, a little smaller grid. That's it. But they'll all be, even the smaller studios are 1 million pounds of rigging capability, tons of power. What do you need? Catering, power, grid, people. Yeah, that's pretty much it, and we have it. So that's a good overview of the studios. So we'll talk a little bit now about probably what you really want to talk about is what things happen, how things happen in the industry. But since we're largely audio here, I mean, I can speak largely to that. As they said, my background was, I started in this industry when I was 16 years old, professionally. Yes, I didn't finish school back then, but and it was all born out of a need of, as most of us, you think you're going to be the greatest guitar player in the world, and then you find out, well, there's somebody else who's a lot better than me.
How many here are musicians?
Everybody, come on,
Everybody's
tell the
a
truth.
musician?
Tell the truth.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. And I found out really quickly that, sitting behind the console, the chances for success were far greater than standing behind the microphone. And that's kind of where my career was born out of. Started in the late 70s doing this as an engineer. I was a front of house touring engineer for 25 years. Started off in the rock and roll business with a band called Nantucket. I don't know if anybody remembers them or not, but there moved on. Went on with a group called AC/DC, Bob Seger, Foreigner, Boston. Later in life, I moved into the country music business. Spent 17 years with the group Alabama as the production manager and front of house engineer at the same time. So a lot of mine I was either production managing, tour managing, and mixing, because I figured the good opportunity, the one time that the artist doesn't need me is when they're on stage, so why not do what I love doing and mixing? So that's kind of where that came out of. to kind of frame it up as far as the need for people, and I can give you an example, kind of a day in the life. Take a Kenny Chesney artist, for instance. I've been involved with Kenny for a number of years in a lot of different aspects for him. Whenever we're running out on a tour with Kenny, to kind of frame that up, when we're running in full stadium mode, we're running with 80 trucks, 26 buses, 2 airplanes, and enough generation and diesel fuel to completely ruin the planet. Of that, we're taking 163 people full-time with us on the road, and we're picking up an additional 250 to 300 people at each stadium that we go into. So does that kind of widen your purview of what it takes, not just 100, but for that one person to stand up on stage, what it takes to support it? And not just on the audio side, but if you think of all those truck drivers, all those bus drivers, all of the hotels that are involved, all of the accounting that's involved, all the catering that's involved, the wardrobe people, the rigging, the power, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I know everyone is, more audio-centric in this, but I really want to, and I'm happy to take questions on that, but, there are so many opportunities in this business that everybody always thinks of the obvious. But if you look into that, the ones that are in the support modes as a career choice, I can tell you from experience, very lucrative. If you do it right and you do it well, there are so many supports places in this industry that you can make a really good living at doing it. And we can get more into detail on any of those that you have. There are the things that you want to talk about in that area.
So I just want to ask I like to ask questions. So how many, I know from Carl's class, or sorry, do you go by Mr. Napa or Carl's fine? Okay. Just want to know who you guys know who I'm talking about over here. But how many, I know with what Carl teaches, how many people here are looking to be more in the studio, doing tracking and that type of work in a studio as an audio engineer versus have thought about like a live element to what you guys do in terms of being a front of house engineer or being a monitor engineer or being a stage tech or any of those types of things when you look at a career and where you guys are looking to go? Or is it still up in the air? Anybody?
Yeah.
How about hands for live, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Anybody
Who wants to
thought
be on the
about
live side
of
of it? Yeah.
things? So, a fair amount of you guys. So, and that doesn't mean that you can't do both. I just want to be clear about that too. Our industry works very much on a freelance basis as well as a company basis. So you can work for a company, you can work for yourself. There's many different avenues of how you do it. Obviously the most important thing is doing it the right way, and you got to learn that somewhere. The studio element and vibe, is definitely a little bit different than the live touring side. And what we've seen in the industry is a shift more from the studio side more towards the live side, just based on where the money goes. It's really just kind of the career path you're looking to do. The most important thing that I learned getting into this industry, and I didn't get in when I was 14. I don't know how that's legal, but you can explain
16.
that to me.
Yeah.
16, all right.
Driver's license.
There you go. Anyway, I got into the industry when I was 18. It was kind of one of those things where I literally was like, I want to be a roadie. My brother wanted to be a doctor. He's a doctor. He hates me, so that's fine. I became a roadie and became very successful and great. But the one thing I learned when I started when I was 18 was, when I went to the production manager for the Fish, is who I started with 20 years ago, and I still work for them. They're the only act I still go out with. But our production manager at the time said, I went to him and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be in the live event industry. I want to do this. I want to do these shows. I want to work in this industry. How do I do this? How do I do this full time, whatever? And he basically looked at me and said, you see what everybody else is doing here, whether it's carpenter, stage manager, an audio guy, a lighting guy, a video guy. It didn't make any difference, but essentially watch how they do things and learn how they do things, because if you can learn how to do all of these different things, you'll never not have work. And I think that that's more true today than it was then, because now our workforce has, because of the pandemic, taken a hit, and we need more people to work in our industry now than we ever did before. But if you know how to do things the right way, and if you know how to do multiple things, you'll never have to worry about the next job or worry about having, you'll find your next job very, very quickly. So I think regardless of the live side versus the studio side, that rings true. So,
yeah. And it's a natural progression, as he said. If you're thinking of, going into the audio profession and working your way into that, one thing that I can tell you is, being a single discipline thing, most of your production managers and your tour managers were once either a single discipline person. We're either a lighting person or we're either this, and it's kind of stair steps up. And sometimes if you're lucky enough, which I was for a long time, to be able to kind of live on both sides of the world, actually be able to production manage and mix at the same time, kind of doing what you like doing. But as to what Trey said, and I'd like to use the term zoom out a lot. And I know it's very easy when we're in it to where you're really focused on exactly what's in front of you. But if one thing I could offer you is zoom out all the time. Look at not just what's directly in front of you, but what, as Trey mentioned, what's going on around you. And that's just going to, it's going to make you a little bit better at what you do, zooming in, but it's also going to make you open your eyes more faceted to what's happening around you. Once again, as we said earlier, it's 80% of how you hang in the clubhouse, 20% of how you hang on the football field or the baseball field, to use the sports analogy.
And when Eric read our bios, I don't know who wrote those, but anyway, one of the things, if you noticed in those, is regardless of me or David over here, is when he listed, it's David's done this, and this. Trey's done this, and this. That's a big reason why we've been so successful in our industry, because we have I can go and talk. I'm a video guy. Some people in the industry call us vidiots, but I'm a video guy that other departments enjoy working with, because I know how to go and work with the audio department. I know how to go and work with the lighting department. I know how to communicate with them with their stuff. I know how to communicate. I know how to not, run my cables through their world and mess up, I'm trying not to use bad language here, but not to mess up their world. Those are all very important things, and that's part of that clubhouse that David speaks to. So,
yeah, and all the disciplines now, as you well know, largely audio focused, everything is connected now. To where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everyone was their own island, and they operated autonomously. Everything about the departments was completely segregated. And hopefully, as you guys know now and you're learning, everything is intertwined now. It's, the lighting console is controlling the video server and the cameras now. I mean, it's amazing on how easy that you can open things up and close things up via all the different companies. So they all work very well together, which is just another thing somebody trying to get in. Just to tell you to keep your eyes open to the other disciplines, because everything is interconnected. And with the advent of Dante, which we have now, and streaming networks that we have now, and fiber optics, the most important person on the tour right now is the network person. Used to be the guy who had all the power, that was the front of house engineer. No, buddy, it's the guy who's figuring out how all the network switches are working together, is the guy or the girl with all the power.
They're the most annoying too.
Yeah, they tell you, I can tell you how much people like that make on A-level tours right now. It would probably stagger you of what those people make a week to be out there as an IT person. So I guess I think if everybody, I would like to, Q&A, if that's okay with it, kind of open this up, because I can talk to you all day about things we want, but I would much rather hear, and Trey and I would, what do you want to know? How can we help you? Questions you guys would have about anything in the industry, everything from lifestyle to as technically proficient as you want to get. I can talk down to the the 19th level of array processing in a D&B network, or I can talk to you about what it's like to check into a hotel with a group of 100 people. You know, we're kind of
Sleeping on a tour bus.
yeah. That's a whole nother class.
Yeah, that's its own thing.
Etiquette on a tour bus. That's a class.
Three rules.
Hopefully,
Three rules.
we can come back one day, and that's a whole 50-minute class right there. So please, anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I know you guys are very tour-oriented.
Sure.
I know y'all are very tour-oriented, but do you guys have opportunities for people who are not interested in touring, but just staying in, like, at the facility?
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ratio
Excuse me.
we have right now we're just ramping up, and we have 75 people that are working that never leave the facility right now. As an example, the shop, there are people that work in the shop that prep the gear, maintain the gear, make sure that everything when it comes back in, it has all the right software updates, all the right firmware updates, and the building out. But to answer your question, absolutely we are. Yeah, we're not just touring. We're looking for people to come work in the facility full time, both in the studio and in the production company. And there's a lot of opportunity there, a whole lot. Great question.
And the other thing too is obviously, and this is no offense to Carl or Webster, coming from a school, right? There's things that you're just not going to learn here. I know Webster's one of the best schools out there for learning while on campus, while learning here. That's one of the reasons why we love partnering with Webster. But there's always that experience that you're going to get working in a shop, working in a facility, working in, you don't have to go on the road. We have plenty of people that don't tour. It's not necessarily what you have to do. But the guys that are out there, they're learning from the guys that stay home and are at the shop and work, they're learning from the guys that come in from the tours. They're learning from department heads and people that have been in this industry for 40 years, people that have been in the industry for 20 years, people that are no longer on the road because that's not what they want to do anymore. So, like we said earlier, it's a very small industry. So, the more you learn, the more, I keep trying to push that, the more you educate yourself with how things really work out there in the real world. Again, no offense to the school thing. That's just more experience and more things you can learn. So.
Yep. Anybody else? Yes. Touring life? That's a great.
Repeat the question,
Yeah.
David. Repeat the question.
Yeah. Ask what is touring life like out there? Obviously, it's not the cocktail party and big party atmosphere that it's conveyed to be. I think it's one of the most rewarding things out there. Obviously, that's where we've come from, but it is also
I still do it.
grueling and hard. A typical day in the life, for instance, let's just say you're a system engineer for a large tour, being the audio guy. You're off the bus at 6 a.m. with your disto meter, you're shooting the room, you're shooting the stadium, you're marking your points. Maybe you're done by 7 to hand those off to the guy who's going to hang the PA for you. And then maybe at 7:30 you've got enough time to run to catering to grab something, a cup of coffee or a biscuit. 8 o'clock, the truck doors open, and you're going like hell till about 11:30 or 12 till the rig's in the air. And then maybe you get 15, 20 minutes to go sit down and have a sandwich, maybe, if you're not actually bringing the sandwich to the other person who's actually working harder than you. 3 o'clock rolls around, here comes the band gear steps on, your system tuning, your sound checking. The band sound checks at 3, they check until 4. Now you're loading the support acts on. You're going to work with them all the way till doors, which is usually 6 o'clock. Catering starts at 5. Maybe you're going to get an opportunity to sit down for 30 minutes to eat dinner. Oh my God, 7 o'clock, the doors are open. First band's on at 7:15. Are you mixing the opening act? Are you wiring the opening act? Are you supporting the opening act? Maybe, maybe not. If so, you're working to get that through. Your headliner goes on at 9 o'clock. They play till 11. You're immediately in the loadout. You're loading out for at least 3.5 to 4 hours, 2 to 20 trucks, depending on how big the tour is that you're on. And then you take a shower in usually you take a shower in the well-provided facilities at the stadium or at the arena, the locker room. And then you lay down at 2 o'clock, you get on a bus, You run 80 miles an hour and get tousled all over the highway. And my God, it's 6 o'clock. Let's wake up with my cup of coffee and shoot the room again. Does that give you any idea of a day in the life?
I completely disagree with him, to be honest.
He's a video guy.
Yeah, I'm a video guy. I won't give you the scary version. Jesus, that scared me.
That's real.
Okay. Anyway, so
It's fun.
a lot of what David said is true, but it depends on what department you're in. It depends on what you're doing. Apparently David was in some really bad tours, but country works a little different than rock and roll. Rap works a little different than country. It's all kind of depends on where you end up and work with. Some are better than others. Some artists put you in the Four Seasons and you go out do 3 shows in 7 days, and some go out and they do 6 shows in 7 days and you're at the Red Roof Inn. So it just depends. Obviously, every tour is different. But a day in the life of a video guy. Everybody wants to be a video guy, by the way, just to let everybody know that. But, we get off the bus at 9, 10 a.m. and we go in and sit in catering for an hour and wait for the truck to get dumped. And then once the truck's dumped and you set up all day, like David said, there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided to you, generally speaking, catering, that's that type of thing. If you work for bands like I do, there is no support act, which is great because you don't have to deal with all of that. But you go in and you do the show, you load out. Depending on your department, someone like Kenny Chesney has 80 trucks, but generally speaking, audio is going to deal with the audio trucks, video is going to deal with the video trucks, lighting is going to deal with the lighting trucks. You're not dealing with 80 trucks, so you get out. You get on the bus and you hang out for a couple hours when the bus is going down the road, and then you sleep and you wake up and do the next thing. But there's great things about touring that I love all of that. I love everything I do when we're doing a gig is for the load in and for the load out, right? The show happens in the middle. So when you're loading a show in, you're doing it in a way that it's the easiest way to load out, right? So certain departments take longer than others. If you're a rigger and you're putting the stuff in the air, they're the first ones in, the last ones out. Generally speaking, after that, it's lighting. Lighting, second one in, second one, last out. Audio, video, it just kind of goes from there, right? And then, of course, if you're the artist, you show up at 4 o'clock hungover and jump on stage, sound check, go sleep in your dressing room, and then get on stage and play for 3 hours and then party all night. So, but it just depends. There's so many different artists out there, and some are better to work for than others. Some things work differently than others. Some, like I said, country works a little different than rock and roll. The Nashville scene's its own kind of deal. So it just varies. I love the fact that I've toured the world 3 times over. I've been to just about anywhere you can name. I love, the camaraderie I have with all of the other roadies. It is a family. There is no tighter knit thing in the world, in my opinion, than a roadie family. And I have I have a wife and a kid, and that is my family at home, but right behind that family is my roadie family. So it is some of the most meaningful work I've ever done in my life. I'm the CEO of Gateway now, and I have a lot of responsibility here at home and doing the things. I still go do fish because I've been with them for 20 years, and those people that I've been out there with are part of my family. And and I love the road. I really do. Is it a little more difficult now with COVID and everything? Sure. Do we hope everything goes back to normal? Absolutely. But ultimately, I still get to travel. I still get to go to every city in the United States. I still, I can tell you in just about every city that you can think of, what restaurants are there and what bars are there and the things I like to do on my days off, because there is days off and things you get to do. And then I sleep better on the bus than I do at home in my own bed. So, don't want to scare you from what we do, you know. So there's a lot of great things about it, and a lot of rewarding things. So
Yeah, I think to echo Trey, one thing you'll find out is that the brothers in arms, sisters in arms, that road family that you meet out there are relationships that last a lifetime. It's literally, not used going to war, but when you're out working that closely with somebody and living in such tight confines, you know, you're literally living in two of these areas here a good portion of the time whenever you're traveling with your tour mates, and it's a really good thing. And not to scare anyone with the schedule, but it can be that way. But the thing that these shows have gotten so interactive and so high tech right now, you really have to be on your game. As we said, 25, 30 years ago, when I got into it, it was all about the fun and the party. But the technical side of the shows was nowhere near the complexity that they are right now. It's literally if one person falls or falters, the other 50 people fall with you. It's something you have to really be on your game on the technical side of things. It's very, very laser focused right now out there, as you guys well know. The technology side has gone and continues to. It's exciting, especially for us, production companies, people like you that want to get in it. A lot more jobs than there used to be. Anybody else have questions? Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in more information about the facility you're building.
Sure.
Who's the architect? What are some of the technical features? What are you offering or going to be offering that artists can't find in other facilities?
got it. So first of all, our general contractor is Arco. So they're a big worldwide company that's done. I think they built the pageant in terms of music venues and stuff down here. They worked on the Centene Ice Center out there where they have the world, Live Nation has their new amphitheater out there. So in terms of architecture of music facilities in St. Louis, GMA is the architect that they use. So GMA was the architect on the project. But in terms of the facilities themselves, obviously it is in one facet, it's four walls and a grid, right? It's designed for one aspect to be an area, I don't know if we can go back to the floor plan, but one area that is for rehearsal studios where a band can come in, set up, come in and build and tech and rehearse their show, like I said earlier. And we're there to support that if needed, whether that's gear or people or whatnot. We bring in other local companies like Clancy and Rhino that bring in labor forces in order to support those tours when they're doing their load-ins and stuff like that. And then when they're not in there, we also, the facilities were built as a Swiss Army knife, so to speak. So there's all kinds of other facets going into that. So we do corporate. Corporate events are a huge part of our industry, and that requires lighting, sound, video, all the elements of everything we do. So that's a lot of the spaces being used for that.
Catering.
We have catering, obviously, is a big part of the facilities just based on the amount of people that work in and out of there. And you got to feed people, people eat. So obviously that's a big part of it. And then, we have our houses, our offices housed there as well, our corporate offices and those types of things will be on the facility as well. There's green screen areas, there's VR areas, so there's always clients locally coming in to do things, whether that's audio, video, lighting, all kinds of things, photo shoots, video shoots, commercial shoots, all those types of things. So, we've really built this thing to incorporate and facilitate all different types of things. So.
Yeah. And technologically, it's all the things that we, food, grid, power, and infrastructure and backbone. Obviously, just on power, to kind of put it in perspective, the Studio 80 in-house will have 3,600 amps of three-phase in that room. I don't know how power savvy people are, but that's quite a bit of power. So anybody that comes in, no matter the size of the show, there will be enough electrical power. There'll be enough fiber in there. There'll be enough bandwidth in there. All the studios have connectivity and interconnectivity to each other through a hub back to the office. We're going to have pre-visualization suites for lighting in there. Basically, is where you come in, your designer comes in, and you can literally do the programming now on a lighting tour, which most people are doing on the larger ones in a complete virtual environment before we even hang the rig, which does several things. You don't have to have the labor, you don't have to rent the building, you don't have to burn the lights, you don't have to burn the power. That technical of really getting my pallets together and how I want things to interact. And they're even doing that with automation now. We're actually doing automation moves prior to. Fish, for instance, I don't know how many people are familiar with their lighting rig, but there's 48 sticks of truss on that rig, and every single one of them automate and move. So think about the interaction between disciplines when everything's moving over your head, and safety. That's a big, big part of it. The rigger and people, that's really being heads up on your job. You don't want to be the person that, moved or screwed up or took a sip of coffee and hit Mick Jagger in the head with a 6,000 pound piece of truss or something. It's very safety, 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 safety. It's really moved to that. That's a very, very large part of what we're doing. But back to the studios, that's pretty much it. And there'll be a hotel on property, obviously a very high level hotel that we will operate and be part of us, so that obviously we need rooms for people that are coming in, both for touring people as well as corporate events. So there'll be a hotel on property. The proximity of the private airport, directly 1/8 of a mile across the street from us, is a very big factor in this, with a lot of people that have inquired and existing clients that we already have. A lot of those guys come in. Most of your A-level acts come in on a private jet and do their business, and then they fly back home every night. That's a very, very, very commonplace on the A-level artists. It happens all the time. And parking, and here we are. It's going to be the largest facility of its type in the world. There's only one other facility in the United States right now that started this. It's a place called Rock Lidditz in Lancaster, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which is Clair, for your audio people. That's where Clair Brothers is home to. That's where they were born out of. They built the one box, literally in the middle of out there in Lancaster. Not a whole lot of infrastructure or things to do there, and they have run a very, very successful business for many, many years. And there's a 2-year waiting list to get into that one room. They're building another one. So this concept was born out of, gee, let's do it. And one thing led to another, and it's going to be the largest facility of its type. Another part of why are we here in Chesterfield? Why are we here in St. Louis? Location, location, location. If you put a pin in the middle of St. Louis and draw a circle around it, you can hit so many of your major metropolitans in a CDL 10-hour drive time, which is that's a whole nother class on how we move, how things move.
One thing to just piggyback off of that, and it's more than just the studios. For me, getting this project done in St. Louis was extremely important. So I grew up here, born and raised here. I don't know how many people are from St. Louis or from elsewhere, but I love it here personally. I moved to LA. I went to school in LA, I worked in LA, I did all that stuff, and I ended up moving back here. But I've watched the music industry in St. Louis, and I know some of you are a little young for this, but the music industry in St. Louis used to be a prominent piece of what happened in the St. Louis Blues. I mean, literally, it's a flying musical note. Like, music has been part of the DNA of St. Louis since I can remember, and probably since you guys can remember too. A lot of that is left. It's gone to Nashville. It's gone to Denver. It's gone to Chicago. And really, part of our core focus in doing this and getting it done in St. Louis was to bring that industry back to St. Louis. These facilities, there's such a large need for that in our industry. And like I said, our industry is very small. We have every artist you could possibly think of already asking, when is it going to be finished? Because they want to come and use that. And when they come and use that, that brings businesses here, that brings jobs here, that brings the industry here. And are we ever going to be in LA or New York? No. But can we be in Nashville and better? Absolutely. We already used to be. We're trying to bring that back and put that back on the map. St. Louis has so many great things going for it. And geographically, it's such a perfect spot for us to do this here, a lot of what David said. So, we're really trying to do that, and I think, you guys are getting ready to graduate next year, this year, whatever. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I really think, you guys are going to see a lot of that transpire over the next 5 years, where companies move in. We've seen it in Rock Lidditz, for example. Lidditz, Pennsylvania is in the middle of nowhere. It's in Amish country, cornfields everywhere, and there's these giant black boxes in the middle of cornfields. It's like an alien invasion. It's weird as hell. But since they've done this, they've gone from 600 employees to over 1,500 employees, and they've gone from 3 businesses to over 40 businesses that have moved in. All industry-based businesses, all industry jobs that have moved into Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which, again, middle of nowhere. So we've got at least that going for us, where
we got Topgolf.
We got Topgolf right down the street. So, there's a lot of buzz going for our industry. I assume that you guys all want to be in this industry, so I'll call it our industry. That is happening in St. Louis right now.
Yeah.
So,
more questions? Yes, sir.
So I don't know if this, because I know we're talking a lot about the touring and stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
service. I don't know if you could like elaborate on what that's going to be, and I'm just curious how you're going to overcome issues with because it's a two-way thing. So when you're streaming 4K HDR surround, they have to be able to whoever's streaming it has to be able to receive that, and the current climate of internet availability in the U.S. would not allow for that on a mainstream level. So I'm just curious on
Good question. Yeah, I'll let Trey. The question was he's inquiring about HiFi and the streaming side of what we do here, and what are the challenges in pushing it up at such a high resolution and in a 5 or 6 channel or 7 channel mode versus what's the bandwidth available on the downside of it for people at home, the consumers, to be able to pull into their house and put down. And I'll let Trey is much more of an expert at that than I am, so I'll let you field that one, buddy.
Fish, for example, we broadcast every show, right? Every show is different, so we're either webcasting or broadcasting every single show we do. So spent a lot of time and energy and focus on this and know a lot about it. Essentially what you're looking at now is as technology grows and technology gets better and codecs change and stuff, we're able to do H.265, HEVC type streaming. Sorry, I don't know if everybody understands what the hell I'm talking about, but I think you do. So, with that, you're being able to put a 4K HDR stream with surround sound, those elements too, out there at a much lower bit rate than you would in days past, like an H.264 or an MPEG or anything like that. So with that ability, obviously you're always going to deal with the back end user and the limitations of their own personal ISP at home, right? That's just part of it, right? So obviously with that, what we do is you have a step down, right? So if they're unable, they're on their cell phone and they just don't have the bandwidth to produce that, right? It steps it down, which is customer service is a huge part of everything we do. You don't want angry customers and those types of things. So that's part of it. And then the other side of it obviously is there is way more people in the United States now that have high-speed internet at their disposal. And when I say high speed, it's generally 25 meg or higher for their download speeds. So 4K HDR and an H.265, generally speaking, you can get in there around 12 megs and have a pristine quality. HDR takes up very little, if any, bandwidth, and audio generally doesn't take up a ton of bandwidth. There is some caveats to that, but it's technology. Technology is getting better and advanced. HiFi, for example, the only 2 people that can do all of this live is HiFi and the Olympics. And we're on the same platform that the NBC and the Olympics teams use for all of their 4K streaming, HDR streaming. So there's 4K streaming. There's no one doing 4K HDR streaming with surround sound live. So other than HiFi. But is that anything else to that?
I could talk.
Sure. We can do a class on that. Yeah.
I just have good answer.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good.
Anybody else? Questions? More?
Anything?
Anything, please. Yes.
Are you using the facility for just rehearsal space, or would you be putting on events there too?
Great question. The question was you're referring to Gateway, not the show. Okay, Gateway Studios, not Gateway Production Services.
Yeah.
There's two sides. Okay, so her question was at the studios, are we going to do more things than just rehearsals in there? 100%. Yes, we'll be doing corporate events out of there, live streaming, some live events. It's not a ticketed place by any stretch of the imagination. This is
We won't be throwing concerts in there.
yeah. No, it'll be corporate events or things that are set up to have very, very small audiences in with them, streaming events, things like that. But for the most part, it's more of a closed box, not a large audience. But yeah, we will be
Private
doing other
events and
things.
those sort of things.
Yes.
Did you say how many employees you have? Because this feels like such a massive, like such a huge scale thing.
Great question. She asked basically how many employees do we have? Currently, we have almost 60 just working in the production services side, i.e. the sound, light, video, and rigging company. Fabrication, we also have fabrication in. We're right at 60 of that. There's administrative staff, support, accounting, HR, ding, 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 salespeople, project managers, which that's something we can go into as well, as so many of those opportunities are there. But the plan is, I think, by the time we open in a year from now, that we're going to be probably about 125 to 130 full-time employees, all at a really nice rate. We're very, very active with the Missouri Works program for the state here, and it's a brick and mortar that we're putting in. I mean, this is not just your mom's black box and have two people and wait for it to come. We're going to be hiring and employing a lot of people, and this is not a small thing. This is a $175 million investment here. There's a lot of money on the line here, and obviously it's going to be the best. We're very, very blessed that our ownership group expects and accepts nothing but the best all the way across the board. So yeah, we're going to probably have 100, and on top of that, you have your touring person. That's not touring personnel. That's strictly people that are at the facilities 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, whatever, it depends on how we're doing. But the touring people are on top of that, so that's exponentially. If you have your average tour, when we're touring, for instance, I'll kind of give you some general about employment on tours, if you will. An average audio crew that goes out we'll base this on an arena tour, because stadium tours are completely different animals unto themselves. Your average audio crew that goes out on a tour is 6 people, 6 to 8 people. That's probably a good average. And that's counting, you have your front of house engineer, you have your monitor engineer, usually that are employed by the band. Sometimes we provide those. You'll have a stage patch person or 2, depending on how many support acts are on the tour. You'll have a systems engineer, the gentleman or lady that's in charge of designing the system for that day, optimizing it for the room. Then you usually have 2, which we call fly techs or fly guys, fly people, that actually put the PA in the air. Usually you'll split it left and right, delays, depending on the complexity or the PA that you have. So that's probably a good overview of your audio side. Lighting is usually 6 to 8. This is on average. Of course, that's always you're going to have your lighting director. You're actually going to have the person who usually runs consoles and networks that sets them up, does your preset daily focuses for the lighting director so they can walk in and go, oh, I love it, or oh, I hate it, where's the button? That's kind of how things work on that world. And then you've got a dimmer person, the person basically we call dimmers. Dimmers are pretty much gone now in our industry. The old school of dimming, everything is done digitally now in dimming. But dimmer person or dimmer position refers to power. Person who takes all of the cables, makes sure the loads are balanced, the power's balanced. And then you've got usually 2 to 3 rigging electricians, which we call people that actually put the rig together, put it in the air. And depending on the tour, you've usually got another person who is just overseeing the networking side and people fixing the moving lights. That's also a part of when you're out on the road as a lighting person, it's equipment. It's not will it break? It will. It does break. It breaks every day and at the most inopportune time usually. So the service side of it goes out. A typical video crew, Trey can speak more to that, that could be from 6 to 20, depending on how many cameras you're manning and operating. You can kind of see how this thing just keeps blossoming and blossoming and blossoming.
4 to 10, basically.
Yeah.
Just depends.
Yeah. And then, I mean, to elaborate a little bit more on that as far as opportunities, and then you have your catering company. If you're a successful act that you're touring with your own catering company, that's usually 6 to 8 to 10 people, usually on the catering staff. Then you have all of your production manager, your tour manager, the person that takes care of travel, you know, the production office people, production assistants, a wardrobe person or 2 or 3, depending
Catering.
on the act. Yeah, cater the 6 to 8. So you can see how fast the city grows, even on an arena-sized tour. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. A lot of opportunity.
Fish, for example, is an arena tour with plus markets and stadiums, just depends. But we're probably 80 to 85-ish out there on the road with us. I mean, Fish is one of the biggest acts out there. So it's, yeah, Kenny is all stadiums, so Kenny's probably, what, 130?
136.
136, so.
That was the last time.
It just
That's how
varies, and
we had
then
out.
you get into smaller bands that it could be 6 guys, you know. Audio guy, a lighting guy, a monitor guy, a tour manager, a production manager, a backline guy, and the band, you know, and that's it. So it just, you know, it's a very scalable, tours are very scalable, just depending on who the artist is.
Or you can go work for a comedian and be the one person with the comedian and fly on a private jet and make as much money as everybody else. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What? I didn't hear it.
Great question. His question is, what are the IT opportunities like on the road? When are you ready to start?
Yeah. Yeah, we need as many IT guys as we can get.
Yeah, that IT is, as I forementioned, everything runs on a network. Everything now. I mean, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is no discipline that it's in live music right now or in live entertainment that doesn't have a network switch somewhere in it or in between it. So to answer your question, huge, because that's the person, you have to have somebody there who knows IT, switches, bandwidth, connectivity, fiber, Cat 5, Cat 6, that's how we transfer information now.
And I would say that the best people on the best crews, whether you're an audio guy, a lighting guy, a video guy, production manager, it's always the top guy is the guy that knows all of the networking stuff. Like, you know, if you're a video guy, it's your engineer. He'd better know networking backwards and forwards. If you're an audio guy, it's your systems tech guy that probably knows it backwards and forwards. If you're a lighting guy, your dimmer, you know, the guy running dimmer, as we call it, dimmer beach, but dimmer tech, he better know networking backwards and forwards. So there's always got to be somebody in every department that knows it.
Yeah, and also probably the most used or the loudest clucking IT side of the tour is the connection in the offices and the dressing rooms.
Because they don't know anything.
Dear
about
God, if
networking.
the internet in the production office goes down, or the office or the artist cannot get a high-speed line in their dressing room, that's more catastrophic than not having half of the lighting rig some days. Trust me. Yeah. But yeah, lots of and that side of this business is just doing that. So no matter where you guys are or what particular discipline you are, learn the IT side of it, because not only will it make you a hero, but it'll also save you when it goes down too, knowing how it is. There's so many redundancies that we have built into everything right now in the touring world. Everything we do has a backup to it. Every network has a switch backup. If the switch goes out, there's an analog fallback. Da, 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 da. You know, everything is redundant because you can't fail. The loneliest time in your career is when you're a front of house engineer and the PA loses connection and there's 60,000 people looking at you because it's your fault, because you're the guy at the console. 3 seconds is 14 lifetimes when you're in that situation. Trust me. And hopefully at some point you'll all get to experience that because you'll never forget it. It does and it will happen at some point to you. Anybody else? Come on, you guys have got to have 100 questions, I hope. Yes?
Just a quick,
Yes?
I was just curious, because when you're audio, list of people on the audio team, who normally handles the wireless coordination?
Great question. The question he asked is who handles frequency or wireless coordination? Usually it is a person that's associated, your stage person, your tech person usually, or sometimes a backline person. Some tours have a specific person for RF. Because you have to think now in RF coordination, we have on an average tour, it's easy that you're managing 50 to 60 frequencies a day. And now that with the advent of HD TV and everything else, and our government selling it to Verizon and everybody else, that what used to be a C this wide of turn your mic on, it'll work, is about that big right now. And with the advent of digital, it's getting a little bit easier to manipulate that. But on the RF side of things, as you refer and who does that, RF is just not microphones. RF is microphones, RF is in-ear monitoring, RF is the guitar player,
Wi-Fi.
the bass player, the Wi-Fi, how that interacts, comm, wireless comm, which is on the tour now. It's not, there's frequency coordination, and that's a fantastic point because we haven't brought that up. That is a career unto itself. I have a couple of friends at the advent when this started. Ryan Stotts is his name, one of my best friends. Started off as being the nerd in the back that was looking at frequency, and now he makes about 20 grand a week coordinating for the Super Bowl. You know, it's IT, that's frequency, that's all the same because guess what? How do you get those frequencies from one place to the other? A network switch. Yeah. Great question. Yes?
Yeah, how do you guys prepare for like different sized venues when you go on the road? I was just working on a tour a while ago, and I also seen a show 2 weeks prior, and one was an arena show, and the other was at the factory, which is a huge difference.
So,
B-Rig.
so
C-Rig.
the question was, how on tour, how do you prepare for a tour that goes out and plays arena shows, amphitheater shows, and then club shows, basically, and how do you deal with that? So basically, when we go back and look at the studios and you have the rehearsal facilities, they do all of the rehearsal and tech and build out for the largest thing that they do, right? And then essentially they have a build, a B build, and a C build that they plan accordingly for. So one of the biggest things that we do in our industry is before these tours even go out, it's generally a production manager, but our production manager is going out and advancing the show with every building, every venue on that list of tour dates that you're going to play, so that they have as much knowledge as possible before they walk in that room, and they have a plan of where they're going to, you know, it's going to be the A rig, it's going to be the B rig, it's going to be the C rig, or what we're going to do in order to, you know, the rig just won't fit in, the show won't fit in this building, so we need to pull out these sticks of trusses and we need to bring in the PA or whatever it is. So that's how that's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Pre-planning.
Yeah.
Everything
Advancing.
is, we call it the P's, and proper production or proper pre-production prevents piss poor performance. It works every time. Yeah, it's all about the advance. As Trey said, think of the load out while you're doing the load in.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, happy to come back and do this again, and happy to hopefully see a lot of your faces in our facility as we get this internship program rolling, and it's active. We've started the ball, and I think as early as next semester, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to see some of you guys in working with us.
That's great. Thank you, David. Thank you, Trey.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everybody
guys.
for coming. So, cool.
Perfect.